Hi, everybody. We are the NINE2K podcast. My name is Sherry.
And I'm Angie.
And my name is Priya.
Today we have a special guest with us. Our social media manager and editor.
Co-editor, yes.
Miss Angie. Woo,
woo, woo, woo.
Wow.
Are you excited to be here?
Very excited.
Are you nervous?
No, I like hearing myself.
Oh.
How's it like to be at the other side of it? You're going to be looking at yourself while you're editing this time.
I'm going to try and avoid looking at myself while editing.
Felt. Okay, today we're going to be talking about mental health.
Indeed.
You guys have more experience in that area than I do.
What does that even mean? I have more experience in my mental health.
I mean, you guys have been heads up. Like, I've never been to therapy.
That's true.
Let me give you the backstory. So I was raised Caribbean, and in our culture, you pray it away, but you don't go to therapy, basically. So I know there's a lot of people that can relate to me, but you guys have been to therapy.
Yeah.
So what's that like? Like, when did you think, hey, I need to get my ass to therapy?
Well, shall I start with
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Basically, I had like severe social anxiety to the point that I couldn't leave the house. I was scared, like walking down the street, that something's going to happen. I was so afraid.
That's crazy.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? And I couldn't even like talk to people and look at them in the eyes. That's how scared I was.
Really?
Yeah, I would like imagine you're talking me around. I'll be looking like this, like.
That's just me every day, though.
Wait, but how old were you?
I think I was like 13, 14, like from the age of 13 to probably 16.
Mm-hmm.
I was just so scared. I couldn't even order food. I used to get my friend to order McDonald's for me because I just was scared.
Do you remember a few years ago? I think it was first year.
Yeah.
You had to make a reservation and you called me. So basically, she had to make a reservation. And her boyfriend told you for you to make the reservation because his family was there or your family was there?
His family was there.
I got a text and she was like, do you please want to order this for me or make the reservation for me because I am too scared to do this. I was like, what the fuck? But I did it.
Yeah, you did it for me.
I did it for
that's
you.
What I had. Like, I had social anxiety.
That's crazy.
And I used to be so scared of like speak on the phone, making appointments.
I think a lot of people have that though, especially nowadays.
With just like the anti-socialists of them all. Like, if you can just text them on WhatsApp, like, that'd be great.
Yeah, because you don't have to. Like,
No.
why do we have to call each other? I can just email you.
Yeah,
Or I
true.
can just text you. Or the voice memo. But even the voice memo makes some people nervous.
Yeah.
It's like, why'd you send me a voice memo? I
wanna
wasn't
listen
expecting
to this.
anything. Are you trauma dumping?
Just
What's
send
going
me
on?
a gift. I'll get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back, I was just so afraid and so nervous of speaking with people. Like, eye contact was a big thing. I couldn't. And like, is that like autism? Like,
Is it?
autism?
I think it's just it's a thing that neurodivergents in general struggle with. Like, I struggle with it, but
Yeah.
I'm not convinced I have autism. We don't know that for a fact yet, though. But like, it is just a overall like neurodivergent thing to not want to look people in the eyes. It could also be based on trauma. Like, if you were, if a lot of your encounters with like your parents and things like that were very, like confrontational and like loud and just like, you know, you made you kind of shut away,
That's
kind of where it stems from also. So it comes from a lot of things, but if you have a good combo of that, then it's like, yeah, you're never looking someone in the eyes ever.
So it would be trauma.
I think it was trauma because my mom was extremely strict, like growing up, like obviously like growing up she would speak to me in a different language because I spoke like English and Thai, and I remember she would always like instruct me what to do but in my own language. And of course my family, like for my dad's side, didn't understand the language, so they were just like, oh, what is she talking about? But my mom was in my ear, like, look at them in the eyes when they're talking to you, like a whisperer. And I just got so nervous and so anxious, and I think growing up I was just always like walking on eggshells. I was so afraid to do certain things because I was afraid, like, what if I do it wrong? Because growing up my mom was like, yeah, you're not doing it right, like you gotta do it like this, and there was so many rules in the house. Like, I couldn't close the door loudly. If I need to close the door, I gotta do it lightly. And to this day I still have this habit.
To this day, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely
To this day.
that'll happen when you walk on eggshells around
Yeah.
people, when you have to. It's
Yeah.
like you're worried that one wrong move is gonna explode.
Yeah.
Make them explode.
Exactly.
You know?
And you can even tell, like, you know, their footsteps, like who's coming up the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can till this day. I can still do that. I can still do that. Like I know when my mom is in a good mood or in a bad mood. I can just hear it from the way she walks up.
Same.
Yeah.
And that silent treatment that they would give you.
Oh, stop.
Yeah. I had that as well. What else? Yeah, so then I didn't realize that was, you know, something that needs, like,
help.
Yeah. Because when I met my boyfriend, well, now fiance, he was like, you need to speak to somebody. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, I'm fine. He's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And he was like, just go to a therapist and just tell her the situation, tell her about your childhood, everything. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I'll be fine. Like, it was always like, it will be fine for a certain period and it will go downhill and then it's fine again. It was like in waves.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, like, you can't keep doing this. You need to see someone. So then he, like, dragged me to a therapist. And that's when I, like, everything came out. Like, everything. I was crying nonstop. I was literally like...
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Because my mom would have just been like, you need Jesus.
Yeah.
You need to pray it away. You need to read your Bible.
God's light will help you.
God's light will guide me to, you know... Yes. So that was... rough. So like I learned about mental health like later on in life when my friends started to go to therapy, and I was like, why would I go to therapy? Even right now I'm like terrified to go to therapy because I think I'm also gonna be like
I think also with all the warning signs of like you're gonna cry, you're gonna cry, like, but it's like a good thing because then it's working. You know?
What made you go to therapy?
Well, I struggled with a lot of things growing up already, like in my childhood, but then also with my struggles of like wondering if I was neurodivergent in general, alongside just like I was starting to get a burnout after going to uni for like, I think it was like 3.5 years by that point.
Oh yeah.
And I never took like a gap year or anything, and I think it just became too much for me alongside like internship and, you know, everything on top of my trauma, and it just like kind of hit me all in like one go. So over the span of like a good 4 months, I was just going downhill. So I didn't want to even get out of bed, and like it had never been that bad in my entire life. So it was like, I don't want to see people. Like, I missed your birthday on purpose. And like that's not something I would typically do as a person. Like I usually get FOMO when I miss out on things, and like, you know, I'm in a bad place if I like just don't want to leave the house. And that's when I was like, I'm having a lot of flashbacks. I can't get out of bed. Maybe I should talk to somebody. And so I was
maybe it's time.
I was like, I'll go to work. I'll make the money. I'm going to go to therapy every week. And that's what I did for like 6 whole months straight. Just every week, therapy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I'm cool. Now.
Honestly, therapy is so expensive though. That's the only reason I haven't
Yeah.
actually taken that step yet.
But I gotta say, like, I know nowadays it's more readily available because you have things like BetterHelp, even though they're very, you know, controversial, I guess. Like,
who's that?
BetterHelp.com.
I don't know who that
today's
girl
video
is.
is sponsored by. No, it's like an online therapy website, but like a lot of people say that a lot of the therapists they get on there are not official, or like they're not as qualified, and like the therapy they get is whack. But the whole thing is like it's online, it's available to anyone, right? Meanwhile, like in person, it's, you know, expensive and it's in person. But here it's like cheaper and online. I tried that also for like 2 weeks. I did not like it. My therapist was very like monotone and boring and weird. It just sounded like she just wanted to be there and ask me a few questions and then let me leave, you know. I don't know where I was going with all that.
When did you start therapy? Why? Because of
no, but I was gonna give you some advice, or I was gonna tell you something about something about therapy, but I don't remember.
See, ADHD.
Yeah, this is a
Speaking
problem.
of ADHD,
this is a problem. That's when I got my diagnosis. It took approximately over €1,000 later. 1,500, I think.
Oh my god!
And then I finally got my diagnosis. Like if you combine all the costs of going to therapy up until she was like,
But what makes them go, oh, let's test you for ADHD? Is it something you sign up for?
So for 6 months, basically, she was talking to me and just like watching me like a hawk, you know, and like noticing patterns, things like that. And up until a point where she was like, I think, I just remember it. She puts down her clipboard and she's like, I think there's something we should look into. And I'm like, oh, at first I was like, are you going to say autism? Terrified.
Nothing wrong with that. But
no, of course not. Of course not. But like, I was like, wondering what she was going to say.
Yeah.
But then when she said it, I'm like, oh, thank God. I've been suspecting this for like 6 years now. Like, I didn't tell her that going in because I was like, I didn't want to have some sort of, I didn't want her to have it in her head already. Yeah. I wanted her to come to the conclusion that like, oh, she needs to get checked out for something. But it was just 6 months of her talking to me, noticing my patterns, my childhood past, everything combined, and my habits now, and the fact that I also never made eye contact with her. Yeah, always made little napkin worms in therapy. I was never still. I was always moving, and she was just like, that's a telltale sign. And and then I ended up doing my like questionnaire, and then I had a longer like 2.5 hour assessment.
Shit.
The
that's how long it takes?
The first one was like 30 minutes. And then the second one, and I think it also depends on how you get it done, because I think like for our friend it was much longer. And it was like with, I don't know, sometimes they do like reaction tests with you and things like that. But for me it was just like an overall questionnaire first, like a 30-minute one. Yeah. And then later it was like a 2.5 hour like question based one, which with several categories and like, tell me how much you identify or just like elaborate. But that was also like a trick thing. They're like, elaborate, but don't elaborate too much, but don't give us too little. And I would always just keep going and going. And she's like, you gotta stop talking now. Oh, damn. Yeah. It's like at some point, just stop talking. Yeah. But no. I think it's different for where, depending on where you go. But that's how it was for me. So.
And that's how they determined that you have ADHD.
Specifically, the combined type, so ADD and ADHD, but I had more points in the HD part.
What's the difference?
So ADHD is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and ADD is just attention deficit disorder. So people with more traits in ADHD typically, and it doesn't have to be like outward showing, but their brain is constantly going. So like all the time, just all, the way you suspect your mom has it, where she's always just doing something. That's kind of like the more ADHD side of it. While ADD typically affects people in the way of like, they have a really hard time starting something, finishing something. They're typically the people that forget things more often. Yeah. Things like that. They're just kind of, the way I see it is like people with ADHD are just go all the time. Yeah. And there's no stop. Meanwhile, ADD is more of like the, I don't want to say it like that, but like the laid back version where like their mind is more absent. Okay. If that makes sense. Like they might still be overthinking, but it's not on like overdrive. It's like, it's a more of a, like struggle to do this type of thing and, forget things and
like procrastinating.
That's how I see it, especially if you compare like me and Marla together. Yeah. She's the more like, like calmer, but like she can forget things really easily, and like it's hard for her to start some things and finish some things. But with me it's like, because I'm always on the go, it's more like that's why I forget things, let alone not because like I don't know how to explain it.
Also, hi Marla, shout out. That was an unexpected twist. Yeah.
Maybe I'll bleep out names just for privacy reasons. We'll see. But that's how I see it. That's probably the least scientific like way of putting it. But during that like depressive episode, I showed way more signs of like the ADD than I did the ADHD. But like on a normal, typical basis, like me rambling right now, that's where the ADHD comes in. Yep, exactly.
How about you, Priya?
I don't know what I have, but you guys,
she got something.
I'm just mental.
There's something.
I'm just mental.
I have this thing where I think you guys know this. Like, if I am in an overdrive, I'm like, I'd rather die.
Overstimulation.
I was like, it's like,
is that ADHD?
I don't know what it is, but it's just like I'd rather just die.
It can be a lot of things, though. That's the problem.
But I had it when
What do you mean? Like if you're overstimulated or if you're doing too much? What?
Like I get like sad and I go really low to the point where it's like I'd rather just like instead of solving the problem, I don't solve the problem. I'm just like, no,
I'm out. Yeah,
I'm out. Like that's my way of solving the problem.
But you don't have like high highs and really low lows.
Not that often, but when I have them, it's like
I think when you go low, it's like it's really bad.
Yeah.
But do I have my highs? I don't know. Like I'm more like this. It's either like this and it's like drop and it's
okay. It's either medium or low.
Yeah. What I say is like because like my mom was bipolar. And that's like where you have the really high highs and the really low lows. Not like there's no like level. It's just
what
high
is the
and
high?
low.
Like what do they feel?
It's just very manic, like overly happy all the time, positive about everything, but like in a way that's like a Cartoon Network cartoon character.
Okay,
like that kind of. So that's why I was asking because I was just
giving
like,
SpongeBob.
Me?
What? No, that high. It's giving SpongeBob.
Yeah, no, that's
no. You give me Squidward.
Yeah.
No, if I compare my mom to anyone, she was literally SpongeBob reincarnated when she was in like her high because it's like literally so cheerful, like scarily cheerful. So that's why I asked because I was like,
no,
maybe
I don't have that. But when I go low, I'm like low to the point where like.
No texting us.
No.
Like she just will vanish from the.
Could it just be depression?
But then it doesn't last very long.
Yeah, but I think it's different for everyone. But I think like with depressive episodes, even with people with severe depression, it does come and go. It doesn't have to be that often. I know a lot of people that have depression, and for them it's like once a year. But it's like really bad when it happens.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I had it when I think we were having our internship period.
Yeah, that was rough. Yeah.
And I was just like, I just want to...
Because we were overdoing it. I remember during the internship period, I was doing my internship 5 days a week. And then I'd work at my job after. So I would work from 9 to 5 and then from 6 to 10 I'd work as well. And those were the days, the entire week. And I remember you also had your part-time job still on the side.
Yes.
And you would go to Utrecht? Haarlem?
I can't remember. No,
You'd go so far.
I would like...
It wasn't Utrecht.
I don't know, but it was Monday to Friday. I think in Amsterdam. And then Saturday, Sunday I would work.
Yeah, you were just going.
So I was like, I was getting so like overstimulated because I didn't have the time to like relax.
Yeah.
And when my brain doesn't get that, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And I have this thing where I think you guys know this. I have this thing where if I'm working Monday to Friday, I need to have my Sunday for rest day, and I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And if I don't get that,
yeah,
I get really cranky.
Yeah.
But what is that? Is it just something that
it's
I
just
have?
No, I think you just need that time for you. I think also it's the introvert in you.
Yeah.
That needs to recharge to be able to deal with people again for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
But I do think you need like more time. I think you need Saturday and a half. Sunday and a half.
Yes. Yeah,
I think you need another half just to come to yourself.
I don't think it's normal for people to be working more than 40 hours a week.
Which is what 40. We said a few episodes ago, by the way.
Yeah, I just don't think it's like, it doesn't make, like, why are we the only species that has to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know we're smart and all, but like, I'm not living to work here. Yeah. And like, I feel like if you're working even close to 40 or over 40 hours, then it's like, how do you have time for your brain to reset? Like, I'm the exact same way. I will get so angry if I work like more than 4 days a week, and that makes me feel so like entitled and bratty and weird because like, the previous generations will just be like, oh, you're just lazy.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, I'm not. Like, I work very hard, and everyone at my job can confirm that. Like, I'm a hard worker, but I just cannot handle like the 40-hour week. I cannot do it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I just wish that, I know it's becoming more normalized, but it's truly like, what? It's becoming more normalized to have like shorter weeks, but for the sake of mental health, but like, I can't even imagine. 40 hours? No. Couldn't do it, because where is you guys already spoke on this, but where is the time? Yeah. Where is the time to just like
unwind and just relax
and smile?
Yeah. That's why I don't get like, because in America you get like 2 weeks off a year or something, right? You don't get a lot.
It's really not a lot. Like if you're at like a typical company,
yeah,
then you're only getting about 2 weeks off.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of your life you work 40 hours a week.
That's crazy.
That is
no. It was the same for my dad. He was in the military, like as a contractor, and my entire life he only had 2 weeks off. He just ended up never taking those 2 weeks. Yeah. So he just never had off, because it's like, I can almost get it. Like, oh, is it worth, like, it's just 2 weeks. Like, may as well just continue working.
Do you at least get, like, paid for those 2 weeks if you don't take them?
I don't know.
Because in the Netherlands, you get those 2 weeks.
But then you get taxed a lot.
Yeah, you get a lot of tax on them. So they do recommend that you just take it off.
Yeah.
Because it's worth more than...
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I didn't ask my dad about it, but I just know, like, growing up, I never went on vacation because my dad never went on vacation, because it's like, may as well just keep working. But it's like, I don't know how you did it. The same thing was also like, he did that for 30 years. And I'm pretty sure my dad was also not neurotypical. So I don't know how he did
what
that.
What is neurotypical? What is neuro...
Neurotypical is like the cells in your brain, align properly.
Oh, mine are not, for sure.
I don't know. I don't, like, it's kind of bad, but I should know the definitions, but I really don't know the actual definitions. Like, neurotypical just means, because most people, I feel like 10 years ago would just say you're normal, but then it's like, that's not...
That makes the other one abnormal,
which is not true. Like, and also it's just a different way of thinking. Basically, being neurodivergent just means that your brain functions a little differently.
Yeah.
Just same way, like, dopamine, it's a hormone, but like in people like with ADD and ADHD, there's a lack of dopamine. And while in neurotypical brains, you have a normal amount of dopamine. It's just like the way that it works, the way that the neuron.
Would you say that throughout time, like looking back when we were growing up, like dealing with mental health has evolved?
Yeah.
Like now?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, I think like as we get older, and I mean, I think it's, 50-50, because we're finding out more things about our brain and what the brains can do and what they can't. Let's say. But the same way that back in like the 50s, I think, like, for example, autism, I don't think was found until like I think the late 40s, but it doesn't mean it didn't exist, right? So I think it's the same way with this generation, where it's like we're finding out more about certain disorders and just neurodivergence in general, that it's like some people are kind of iffy about it, like oh, is that real? Like, is this just an excuse? And I think that stigma's still there for a lot of things. But I think there's a more openness to it, especially in certain workplaces. Like, I know that if you find a special workplace, they'll give you that time, or like there's like sensory free zones, and like that's important, which wouldn't have not existed ages ago. So
what do you think?
Like what Angie said.
Yeah, so it has evolved, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember back in school, like, I remember the teacher was like, "Oh yeah, he has ADHD," and everyone's like, "Oh, ADHD, like, oh, there's something wrong with him."
What is that?
Yeah, like, and he would always get separated from the class because was so stigmatized, like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And he would have these crazy outbursts. I don't know if it was ADHD or something else that he had. I don't know, but it was just.
It could have easily been, because in men and women it shows so differently, which is also why so many things are only now being researched properly. Is like autism, ADHD, things like that were only predominantly studied on men, so they know the symptoms of like boys as kids, like, oh, this is how a boy as a kid acts with ADHD, but they had never really looked into how does it affect women. Turns out with a lot of these things, it affects women so differently that it goes typically unnoticed until you're like mid-20s.
Yeah, that's
for
crazy.
women, which is like super it's unfair in general to live in a world that's not made for your brain, let's say. But as growing up as a woman, where it's not as noticeable, because like you said, he would have outbursts and things like that. The same thing with that, like my friends as a kid that had ADHD, like they had all the symptoms like to the max, like they would pick at their skin until they bled, they were bouncing off the walls, like they were always getting sent out of the classroom. Meanwhile, I was just there, but I was just in my own world all the time, but I didn't show it. It was just like, sitting there, but this kid was literally like fighting people. And but I think like the research is showing now, and slowly the stigma is being lessened, but it affects men and women differently as well. So I'm grateful for that at least, but I think it's getting better.
Depression was also like very stigmatized.
Yeah,
it's more we're more understanding nowadays than we were back then.
I think we're more understanding nowadays, but I think the issue now is that because, and I think it mainly comes from the fact that we are surrounded by like technology and things like that, is that anxiety, that depression are becoming so much more common or like commonly diagnosed, that I think a lot of people will have a stigma around it because they just think everyone is claiming that they have anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
But I think it's also just becoming more common because we live in a world that's, sucking all the dopamine out of our brains, basically.
Yeah.
We're scrolling all the time. We're, not going to play outside anymore. No. We're not touching grass, literally. So I think that's one that's, I think, still a bit on edge. It's like, the people that are like, very for it, like, if you have this, great, like, let's get it, let's get help for you. But then there's the people that are like, are you serious?
Yeah.
The people.
I think I experienced that in, Aruba for me. I remember a guy offed himself. I don't know. Yeah.
Unalive.
And I remember people afterwards going like, yeah, he had depression. And the men were like, yeah, he was just weak.
Yeah, no.
And that was something, it had me in shock. When I tell you, when I heard people say that, I was in shock. I was like, how can you, it's just, I don't know. So I do feel like it's still like very taboo.
Yeah.
Especially in a lot of cultures, but like in the Western cultures, I feel like we're doing a lot better now than we were back then.
Yeah, and I think people are actually also understanding that like men's, what's the word I can use here, unalived rates.
Yeah.
Men's unalived rates are so much higher than women at this point, but it's gone so unnoticed for so long, and it can't be a coincidence. I mean, you're literally called weak.
Yeah,
if you show any sort of emotion or just negativity or just anything but being the man of the house, the supporter.
Yeah.
Men have feelings too, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Like, I love that hoodie. What is it? Like, boys cry too?
Yeah.
I don't know. It says something cooler on the back, I
Men
think.
cry too. Or
Yeah, it's a cool, like, hoodie, and I love it when I see people wearing it about, because it's like, yeah, no, it's serious, and it went so unnoticed for so long, the same way everything has, but, I think slowly it's getting better, and hopefully it will improve, and we see less of, dark things
at some point. Yeah. Do you guys have any advice for someone that has never gone to therapy or is like is totally against the idea of going to therapy?
Yeah, like why, you need to ask yourself, why are you against it and what is stopping you? Because if you are really struggling, you need help.
Yeah.
Like, don't suffer alone and don't suffer in silence, because it will catch up to you, and then it might be even too late to seek help.
Yeah, and bottling up is never going to change anything. I think a lot of people, especially people with like, avoidant attachment styles, maybe that should be an episode. Anyways, people with avoidant attachment styles tend to just like bottle it all in and think that they can, take care of it themselves or like work through it. But then they don't realize that like you can't help yourself if you're part of the problem. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, keeping it in isn't going to solve anything. You have to tell someone. Even just telling people like helps. So I would advise, just if, the whole idea of therapy seems whack to you, it's like, oh, it doesn't actually help. I think the first step is just trying it out and actually talking about something that you're struggling with and seeing how it affects you mentally, because I think for a lot of people that go, they realize like a weight had been lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah.
When before it's like, well, yeah, bottled in. Like, you feel trapped. You can't do anything with it. So it doesn't improve. It just kind of hovers in that state, which, I think for most of us, or for both of us, that before we went to therapy, that's what happened. It just kind of dwells and dwells and dwells and dwells until you go to therapy and you say it and you cry and then you cry again and then you cry the next time and then you cry the time after that and then you're finally somewhat okay. I think even if you like had a pretty good childhood, like there has to be something you struggle with.
Yeah.
In your life. Even if it's just you're just going to therapy to, complain about work. Like, that still helps. That lets you go home and have a fresh mind, and, the stress won't weigh on you as much. And like, I know that it's, especially parents and people from the older generations will tell you that it's not going to help you, it won't do anything. But I'm pretty sure they themselves haven't tried it, so they can't say it won't help you. And it shows you that they probably should have gone. Because, all that generational trauma just gets passed down further and further if you don't go and get it help.
Until someone breaks that.
Yeah, exactly. But going to therapy for a lot of people is a part of that process, breaking that curse, breaking those bad habits that, like at least for me, my dad was always an angry human. And I really took that anger and that like snappiness and brought it into my relationships with like friends, with my boyfriend. And it took therapy to get English, get that away. No, get rid of that. It's kind of crazy, the switch that goes off in your head. It's like just going and talking and crying as like, what you think is it's embarrassing. But I mean, I would be like, I would literally be sitting in front of my therapist and just be like, I don't know why I'm crying right now. Like, I don't want to be crying right now. And she's like, why? And then I'd cry more because it's like, why are you questioning why I'm crying? That's gonna make me cry more. But no, it's real. Like, you just gotta let it out. Anything, everything.
Do you also think like people need to find the right therapist?
Yes, for sure.
Because there's a lot of therapists that are, I've heard like horror stories about therapists that were actually absolute trash.
Yeah, especially if they don't listen to you, like if they don't take you seriously. And if they're not specialized in, like, if you're already diagnosed with something or another, if they're not specialized in that, like, they can't hear you out. If you're not diagnosed with anything, then just having someone you're comfortable with is like the main thing. I don't know about you, but I got pretty lucky. I found one and I stuck with her. But like,
for me, it was the second therapist.
The second,
because I felt like she was POC, first of all.
That'll help.
So we kind of understood each other because I explained like my childhood and like having strict parents and this cultural like differences and stuff like that, because I was trying to explain my childhood to her. And growing up, I had a lot of non-POC friends, and I was just explaining to her how they didn't understand where I was coming from, but she understood because she kind of like helped me like to understand a little bit more. So she helped me a lot. But the first one was nice, but I didn't really click with her. She was a bit older, and I feel like she every time I would say something, she's like, okay, then why do you feel like that? I'm like,
I don't know. That's know what you're for.
Yeah, it's like, I know it's your job to like get me to question myself and my own thoughts and where they come from, but like, I need a little more than that.
Help me.
Like literally, just help me. Give me answers. Don't just keep asking me because I don't know. That's why I'm here. No, but finding someone that's like, you should have an idea of what your preferences are. Like, I knew like, I wanted someone a little bit younger, closer to my age, so that, it's like they're not gonna question and doubt me when I bring up some sort of issue, which I feel like the older generations do a lot, more often. And also, like you said, like cultural background, because, if you're coming from two different cultures, there's probably going to be some differing opinions there. So just finding, therapists that you think, that looks like a good fit, and then trying it out. And if it doesn't work, just say that. I mean, that happens to them all the time, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm not a therapist, but I assume that happens all the time.
Yeah. So to summarize, everyone needs therapy.
Yes.
You might not find your ideal therapist right away, but take care of your mental health.
Yeah, we live in a dark world. We need all the positivity we can get.
Yeah, you need something or someone. And if you feel best talking to someone, just do it.
Yeah, find someone you trust to talk to.
Yeah.
At least you're talking about it instead of keeping it in.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the most important thing is that it's an unbiased opinion, Your friends can only handle so much, You don't want to constantly be trauma dumping on your friends because then they're also bearing the weight. But if you go to someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know anything about you until, you talk to them about it, then it's perfect because they are just going to give it to you as it is and not have some sort of like trying to protect your peace kind of thing. They're not going to be like, it'll be okay because this and this and this. They'll just be like, that's not good. And sometimes you need that. So
I guess I'll be signing up for therapy this week.
You should.
We're gonna force her. Drag her there.
Oh shit. All right, guys, this was the end of the episode.
Yippee.
As I said before, you can find us on Spotify. We are the NINE2K podcast. Follow us on TikTok and on Instagram.
Yes.
Also the NINE2K podcast. And we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.